Hey guys, I'm Naguura, and today I'm going to be talking about boosting in World of Warcraft. So recently, the whole subject of boosting came up because of Mike Ibarra, who posted on Twitter that he is streaming a sales run, which basically just means that his guild is selling some boss kills or mounts or items from the raid, and he's participating in those boost runs, or maybe his group or whatnot. This created this whole outrage in the community, and I've seen threads on Reddit, and people were really negative in the comments below the tweet, and so on and so on. And I just wanted to say something real quick before I talk about my own opinion about boosting. But firstly, I did want to say that it is okay to be against boosting. Like, if you think that Blizzard shouldn't be allowing boosting, that is fine. But the players who are doing things in the game that are allowed should not be like blamed for doing that, right? Because Mike Ibarra is being praised by the community that he is, playing the game, that he is active, and that he's doing things, that he's like doing high-end content and whatever, and people are constantly praising him for that, which I agree, it is great that Mike Ibarra is part of the community and is playing the game a lot and doing all of those things. But you can't praise him for actually playing the game and then simultaneously also blame him for playing the game. Because boosting is allowed in game for gold. It is a thing that is very common nowadays. So as a player, he's totally fine to boost. It's not against the TOS or whatever, right? So blaming him for participating in boosting, which is something that most players do nowadays, is kind of like a weird thing to do, especially in when you think about the fact that everyone's praising him for playing the game. Again, I think Mike Ibarra totally can do sales runs. I don't care at all because it is allowed in the game right now. So I think he should go ahead and do boosts and sales runs. I think that's great. Just participate in the game, do whatever you want, right? But now let's talk about my opinion about boosting existing. I personally think that boosting and WoW tokens existing in a game simultaneously is affecting the community in a bad way. I think it is a negative thing. I personally think that removing one or the other or somehow solving this issue is pretty crucial for the future of the game. Let me tell you why I think it's affecting the community in a negative way. So first of all, I think it's pretty bad for the in-game economy, right? Because the boosters have more gold than normal players, and therefore the prices for items, for things are getting increasingly higher, especially when a new patch comes out, when something new comes out, because then the boosters know they can put the prices higher because other people that are also boosting have a lot of gold. Now, people who are not doing any sort of boosting, they don't have this gold available to them. So it's a huge discrepancy between boosters' gold and like normal players' gold, which obviously is affecting the economy in a bad way. Then, the biggest issue, in my opinion, is the fact that we're normalizing boosting at this point. Because boosting has kind of always existed in WoW, and no one really cared about it that much, especially when it was gold boosting. People were just kind of like, they knew it existed, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But ever since WoW tokens got added to the game, it became a bigger and bigger deal in the community because WoW tokens increase the value of gold. So because gold was more valuable and more wanted, it also increased the amount of boosting happening. And normalizing boosting is basically the biggest issue because the more boosters exist, people that are actually boosting, the cheaper the boosts are actually going to become. And the cheaper boosts are, the more people feel like they should be boosting, right? Because it's really cheap. Everyone else is doing it. It's really normalized. So my friend just bought a boost. It was really cheap and it was really fast. And it just feels like, oh, if everyone else is doing it and it's so cheap, then I should do it too, right? So it just increases the amount of people that are paying for boosts. And it also doesn't make you feel bad anymore, right? Because in the past, maybe you felt like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't boost. Maybe I should achieve this myself. But because so many other people are boosting, you don't necessarily have this feeling anymore. You don't feel bad for buying a boost anymore. Then, another big impact of this whole normalization of boosting, in my opinion, is the fact that there's actually less people playing the game now that are not boosting, right? So if a person is new to the game, or maybe not new, but wants to get into higher end content, like into higher end rating or higher end and plus, then they have a really hard time getting into those kind of circles and these kind of communities. So they feel the need to buy a boost to be able to get there, to be able to get invited, right? And that creates a problem where there's a lot less people available that you can find where you could achieve those things together, right? Because that would be the best thing to do. And that's something that people did in the past before boosting was such a big deal. Before boosting was so normalized, people who were new to the game or people who wanted to get into high-end rating, high-end and plus, they just found, or they were looking for like-minded people to achieve the same goals together, right? So you found a bunch of people that were in the same experience level, so basically no experience at all, and then you achieved this together. But that is a lot harder to do nowadays because so many people are buying boosts and just basically skipping that first step of getting ahead of the curve or getting 1,500 Raider IO score, in-game score, mythic score, whatever it's called nowadays. Then titles and items and certain achievements aren't necessarily a skill proof anymore, which creates multiple problems because there's so many people. It's so normalized to buy boosts that people that are pugging are used to people that have the achievements but not actually the skill that comes with the achievements. So therefore the players are increasing the skill proof that they want from players to join their raids. Let me give you an example, right? Let's say you want to do a heroic raid, right? Usually people ask for ahead of the curve, which is a heroic clear title to be able to enter the raid. But because there's so many people who are actually getting boosted through heroic to get ahead of the curve that it's not matching up with the skill level anymore. So people that are doing heroic raids, they're looking for more than just ahead of the curve. Even though ahead of the curve is already a big achievement to ask for when you do a heroic raid, right? But people are looking for like mythic boss kills, looking for higher item level, looking for even certain mythic plus score or whatever. They're looking for anything to invite players that are experienced because the ahead of the curve achievement is just not cutting it anymore. And that is why the proof of skill that you need to post to get invited is much higher than what you actually need because so many titles and achievements are just not that meaningful anymore because of all that boosting that is happening, in my opinion. Then some in-game items and titles and achievement and so on, they lose meaning, right? Which obviously comes with boosting. That is something that I personally think affects the game also pretty negatively because in the past, when I was new at the game, I saw those players with those like tier 3 sets and they looked so cool, and they had later on I saw titles and I saw mounts that only players had that were doing that content that I wasn't doing yet. And seeing those things really made me want to do that and made me want to get there, right? But nowadays, it seems like there's like an insane amount of titles and mounts around because there's so much boosting being done. And at that point, you lose the desire of even trying to get into high-end and plus or high-end rating because the meaning of these titles and mounts is so much lower than it was before because of all that boosting happening. So all of this combined, all of this normalization of boosting creates like a higher barrier of entry into that high-end content because people expect more from you. And simultaneously, it also lowers the motivation for people to try and get those titles and those achievements and whatever because they lose meaning, right? So it's like two bad things that affect people even wanting to try and get there, right? So that's why I personally think that the boosting itself might not actually be the problem, but the normalization of boosting is the problem. Because the more boosting there is, the bigger the impact it actually has on the community. If boosting would be just a smaller thing like it was a bunch of years ago, then no one actually cares that much about it, and it isn't actually impacting the community as much. So the goal, in my opinion, should be to lower the amount of boosting that is being done. Because right now it's just completely out of control, and that is actually affecting the community in a bad way, in my opinion. Now, how do you lower the amount of boosting that is being done in game? Well, in my opinion, there's a bunch of solutions. One of the solutions is, of course, removing the tokens or removing boosting. And another solution would be to heavily punish boost advertisement in game. And that might be the easiest fix that they could try first, right? But let's talk about removing tokens first. So if you remove tokens, then I think it creates an environment where boosting loses some value because the gold is not actually going to be as valuable anymore, right? If gold has less value, automatically removes or like lowers the incentive to do boosts, and therefore it might lower the amount of boosting that is being done. Then remove boosting itself, of course. The positive thing would be that if you remove boosting but you keep tokens, then you don't have the boosting that affects the community in a negative way, but you still have the tokens that allow you as a player to not pay real life money for your subscription, but actually buy gold for it or farm gold for it rather, which is just something that some people really bank on. Like some people really don't like paying for a subscription every month. So having that option to use gold for it is good for some players. Now, the negative thing of still having tokens, though, is the fact that gold still has a huge amount of value and it creates other issues, even if boosting is not allowed. Or it creates issues where people are still trying to boost as much as they can, even though it's not allowed. And they're just trying to circumvent the rules and trying to not get caught and whatever. Because enforcing a boost ban would be pretty hard. I think it would be possible because they are banning RMT as well, right? And I would argue that RMT is harder to prove than boosts for gold. Because RMT happens outside of the game and the gold trading happens inside the game. So if they can punish RMT, then I feel like they could also punish gold boosting, right? Maybe not to like 100% certainty, right? There's still going to be some boosting that goes under the radar, very likely. But the more they punish it, the less people are going to do it, and it solves this issue of the normalization of boosting, right? Now, let's talk about the punish boost advertising. I do think that might be also a solution to the problem, or a solution to lower the amount of boosting that is happening, because the amount of advertising that's happening for boosting is just insane. And I think we can all speak of that. Boosting is just being advertised everywhere, like no matter which looking for a group, pre-made group finder you open, in every single category there's boosting that is being advertised in PvE and in PvP, and the trade chat and all of the chats basically in the city are just completely spammed by this advertisement. And it's just annoying. Not only is it annoying though to people that are not looking for boosts, it's also just making boosts or finding boosters easier. So if you're a person that actually wants, or let's say you're a player that is a little bit on the verge, you feel like you want to buy a boost, but you're not so sure, maybe you can find people to play with anyway, if you're in between this kind of thing, you constantly see boosts advertised, it might push you towards actually trying it because, it looks so normal to do because everyone's talking about it. But if no one is actually allowed to talk about this in like a trade chat or in the LFG tool, then I feel like it would be a lot less common and that people are actually doing it, right? Because then you're in this boat where, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna try a boost, because if I have to go out of my ways to find people that boost me, then that is too much. Then I'm just gonna leave it, right? So not having this advertisement, I do think would affect boosting in like a good way. We might still be able to allow some gold boosts, but at least it wouldn't be as much as it is now. So yeah, I think that was my whole rant. In the end, the TLDR is, I think boosting being okay, the gold boosts plus tokens existing, like that combination creates a bad environment for the game, for the community. And I think removing one or the other, or just heavily punishing the advertisement of boosting somehow, would probably solve the issue, or at least make it a little bit better, because at the moment it is getting really bad. So yeah, that's it. What do you think about boosting? Do you think the same way? Do you think that boosting is totally fine the way it is? Maybe you even have another solution than the things that I talked about. Maybe there's something that I didn't really think of that could maybe help the situation. And yeah, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And check out my stream over at twitch.tv Naguura. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Have a nice rest of your day, guys. Bye!